rolls on tonight. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to First Take. We are coming to you live from above the Chase River deck at Pier 17. Following the 49ers win over the Browns, quarterback Richard Sherman had some strong remarks about Cleveland quarterback Baker Mayfield. Let me remind you, he said this: "What's amazing and annoying was him not shaking hands at the beginning. That's some college expletive. It's ridiculous. We're all trying to get psyched up, but shaking hands with your opponent, that's NFL etiquette. And when you pull Bush League stuff, that's disrespectful to the game. And believe me, that's going to get us fired up. He hasn't earned anything in this league." How many games has he won? He's acting like he was the MVP last year. If Patrick Mahomes did that, it'd be one thing, but he would never do that because he has too much respect for the game. And when you see a guy who doesn't, you humble him every chance you get, because eventually he will have respect for the league or he will be out of it. Video has surfaced since from the pregame showing Mayfield and Sherman dapping each other up. You can see there is some acknowledgement between the two, and they definitely made contact. It was later said that he didn't like the way Baker ran off immediately after the coin toss. Ryan Clark here with us now. All right, let me add this. So obviously after he acted like they didn't shake hands and then the video showed that he did, Richard Sherman did come out and apologize on the Pat McAfee show, and he said, "It's my bad," and some more on that note. Stephen A., tell me this. What does this say about Baker?
Well, what it says is that he's not liked, and there are people in the league looking for an excuse to dislike him. Because clearly, based on the video, Richard Sherman had no business to say what he said, that Baker Mayfield didn't shake his hand. Everything else he may have said, he could have had a legitimate point. But now that's diluted by the fact that clearly he made an error and basically used that as an excuse to say what he really wanted to say about Baker Mayfield. Now, me personally, I like Richard Sherman. I appreciate his level of intellect. He's a brilliant brother. He's accomplished a lot of great things. I've talked to him and interviewed him on several times in the past. I love the guy personally. But it almost was laughable for him to call out Baker Mayfield when you consider the fact that Richard Sherman was the guy that once got in the face of Tom Brady. Richard Sherman was the guy that's called out receivers. Richard Sherman was the guy, don't get me started at how he called out Michael Crabtree, called him a trash receiver on national television and all of this other stuff. I mean,
mediocre.
He did
mediocre,
a lot. Yeah, mediocre, I'm sorry. Mediocre, I'm saying. Yeah, mediocre to
Which is trash.
Aaron Andrews.
That means trash.
That's right. I'm saying that's what he said. That's what I'm just saying. Considering how he has antagonized people in the past, you would think he'd like Baker Mayfield as opposed to dislike him. But in the end, what it comes down to is that that's not the case. And when you see what he said, you know how sometimes folks just look for an excuse, any little nugget that they can find to really say what they want to say about you and what they really feel about you. If Richard Sherman had said what he said about Baker Mayfield without bringing up the handshake issue, there would be no issue. We'd be looking at Baker Mayfield because we'd be like, look, man, this is yet another dude that don't like the way that you have been crowned, per se, figuratively speaking, without having done a damn thing in the league yet. That's probably their problem with him. The endorsement deals, every time you turn on your TV, you see a different commercial with Baker Mayfield, and you're like, this brother hasn't done anything yet but throw 22 interceptions in 18 starts. The problem is that he brought up the handshake, which was a false story, and he brought that up to use it as an excuse. So to answer the question, bottom line is, what does this tell you about Baker Mayfield? There are people out there who dislike him so much that some might even be willing to make up a story just to get their point across, to highlight and illuminate the fact that they don't like him, which means that Baker Mayfield, you better step out on the field and produce. Otherwise, people are going to have legitimate reasons to come at you the way Richard Sherman illegitimately came at you.
Before I even talk about Baker Mayfield, I got to say something about Richard Sherman. I usually give people the benefit of the doubt because I'm thinking, like, why would you just lie out your face like that, especially when there are cameras everywhere? It's verifiable. Like, people can find out if you're telling the truth or not. So my first reaction is usually to think, look, people's memories are imperfect. What you can remember is a snub. It might have happened after the game. And you're fired up. And then you're talking at the press conference and you're like, yo, he didn't even dap me up before nothing before the game. What's up? I'm supposed to shake hands, be a man. And then maybe you realize 5 minutes later, wait a minute, he did.
At some point.
Yeah, he shook my hand before the game. Here's the problem for Richard Sherman. he was so specific in his language when he said it. He said, you're supposed to shake hands before the game. Like, he specified that moment. And then when he was kind of busted, he was like, forget about that. I've moved on. Remind me of that scene in Friday. Remember when Smokey was following, and he said, we need to stick together. Why? Like, all of a sudden, Richard Sherman has changed. Why are you guys making a big deal of this? No, Richard Sherman, you made a big deal of this. Nevertheless, what Stephen A. said,
he
you're
meant
right.
the handshake after. He said the wrong handshake.
But you're right about Richard Sherman. I think the impulse underneath is whatever you want to say about Sherman got in this guy's face, that guy's face. Look at Sherman's resume. It's unimpeachable. It is Stanford, Pro Bowl, All-Pro, multiple times, Super Bowl. Everyone shut up. At a certain point, you could say what you want. And what he's saying, I think, game recognized game. He's like, well, maybe I have this attitude, but look at the level at which I'm operating. This dude has that attitude toward me that I don't see. He's not, where's the Pro Bowls? Where's the All-Pro? Where's the Super Bowl? Before you start coming out your face like that. So I agree with that sentiment, Stephen A.
Well, Rich is my guy, right? And everybody in San Francisco was really excited on Twitter because he asked me, he's like, yeah, it was a little different, RC, when we beat the Bucs, and now that the Bucs beat the Rams, it's this big deal. So he's my dude. And I met Rich his rookie year on the lawn at the Pro Bowl. And that year, Brandon Browner made the Pro Bowl, Earl Thomas made it, and I believe Cam made it as well as an alternate. And he walks up to me. I think he had 4 interceptions. He ended up starting later on in the season. And he's like, I'm going to be here next year. Yeah, I'm the one that didn't make it, but I'm telling you, I'm going to be here next year. And I didn't take it as cocky or arrogant or any of those things. I took it as this dude is confident. He understands what type of player he is and what type of player he could be. And he's always kind of had that chip. But whether it was getting slapped in the face mask or slapped in the face by Trent Williams after the game, the Crabtree thing that you bring up, also getting in Tom Brady's face, Rich was kind of like this type of irritant. He was a very Baker Mayfield-like personality. Now, I do believe he had respect for the game, respect for people who played it before him, which I think was the reason we had the conversation, because at that time he saw LOB, Legion of Boom, ending up being like we were in Pittsburgh. So I really appreciated that. But now you look at this situation, it's not only players that don't like Baker Mayfield. Marcus Spears is my dude. We went to school together, and he probably didn't get to see the entire video before speaking on Baker Mayfield, but he went off on Get Up yesterday morning. Reason being is Baker has eliminated himself from receiving the benefit of the doubt from anyone. And so people who didn't see this video because Richard Sherman has done all these things, you immediately believe that Baker Mayfield was capable of doing something like this. And I believe it is his personality, but he's wanted to build this Cleveland versus everybody thing. He's wanted to build that I'm loyal to my people and my people only. So this is part of it. People are going to come for you. And the one thing I'll say is this, I've never been scared of a mad quarterback. Mad quarterbacks don't scare me. Quarterbacks or attitudes don't scare me. Reason being because there's level of tough guy to this game. Quarterbacks ain't tough dudes. But when you upset a Nick Bosa, when you upset a Richard Sherman, people that hunt, kill, and destroy for a living,
Nick Bosa's like Night of the Living Dead, the way he was coming after the quarterback.
Right, it only intensifies that. And so not only are people going to view Baker differently, I think people are going to play Baker differently. They're going to play the Browns differently. And we're watching everybody get up when the Browns come to town for things you said, like we see the endorsement deals. We see you being crowned already, and you've thrown more interceptions than games you've started. And so people are going to keep hunting him and keep coming at him until he stops it.
So super quick. Is it, to me, you can be that way. People may not like the arrogance like Aaron Rodgers, but you got to give it up. Whatever the league wanted to think, it's like, he's bad. What can we do? The fact that Baker's not performing is really the issue, right?
100%.
Then you have to accept the attitude.
Hold on, because I want to get back to what Ryan said, because Ryan, like I said, both you and I know Richard Sherman, got mad love and respect for him. You know him better than me, please don't get me wrong. But I got mad love and respect for that brother and everything he represents and personifies. Absolutely. How does he look this morning? Having clearly lied on Baker Mayfield?
Well, I think one, he looks petty, but also, too, if you know Rich is calculated. And even if he misremembered, let's say he misremembered, he walked into this game with an agenda as it goes along with Baker Mayfield. And I'm not saying an agenda to say what he said afterwards, but he felt a certain way. He used certain things for motivation. These are all true feelings he had about Baker Mayfield. And he could have gotten this out just to say it, but I felt like he needed a reason. And you know, I've been around people that I don't like before, and I've been in high school and college, and I've walked into buildings, I've walked into clubs, I've walked into parties and said to myself, if dude does one thing I don't like, we gonna have an issue. And that's the way that Richard Sherman walked into this game about Baker Mayfield.
Right.
There were already perceptions of him walking
Here's
into this.
what Richard Sherman should like, though. The Browns got all the hype, and they looked like hot garbage on Monday night.
He should love that.
And the Niners defense and that
love
running
that.
game looked incredible, and they're one of 2 undefeated teams. So his team's looking
PI
legit.
loves
We'll see what his quarterback can do. Jury's still out on that. Ryan, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Still to come, Raiders safety Jonathan Abram is joining us next to talk Raiders offseason and his playing status moving forward. Don't go anywhere. He looks ready.